Chapter 1 The Gene Test. You are listening at FameTV.info. Remember, in 1 second there are 7 classes in Jincheng, 9th middle school and senior 3. Although the college entrance examination is over, and all the students already know their college entrance examination results, at this moment, they are looking forward to the head teacher Yuzeping, still a little nervous, because next, what the head teacher Yuzeping wants to announce will determine their future to a large extent. The sunlight coming in through the window added a touch of gold and shadow to a tense youthful face. Following the joint announcement of the Blue Star Alliance Huaya Region Gene Committee, China Gene Council, and China Ministry of Education, the head teacher Yuzeping only said the names of these 3 official institutions. All 46 students in Class 7 of the 3rd grade could not help but sit up straight and listen. Many students interlaced their fingers and even held their breath, because the content to be announced next is more important than the National College Entrance Examination, which was called 100 Years Ago. It is a test to determine the future. In 2137, the Gene Excellent line for the college entrance examination was 597 points, the Gene Excellent line was 483 points, and the Gene Admission line was 395 points. The 3 score lines were read from the head teacher Yuzeping, as usual, fast and clear. However, there were 3 levels of thunder, which made many students pale and instantly lost their blood. Many students took a long breath, and their faces were relaxed. There were 7 or 8 classmates sitting there stupefied as if struck by lightning. This point 395 points. How did this year's genetic admissions line improve by 22 points than last year? I'm just 1 point away. A male student poked his mouth hard, but in the end he failed to control his emotions and cried at the table on the spot. This caused several other students who did not reach the genetic admission line to cry. A genetic admission line will be frozen in the future. Hearing the cries of several classmates, Su Tue felt uncomfortable. He wanted to comfort the classmate who was crying behind him, but he didn't know where to speak. There is also a bit of fear. A score line, just 3 numbers, at this moment, it basically determines the future lives of the 9 classmates. According to the class teacher Yuzeping, supercharge them before the college entrance examination. If you can't pass the genetic admission line, in your life, except for go, there is no hope anymore. However, in this short instant, Su Tue suddenly felt that what the old class said at the beginning was far less cruel than it is now. On the podium, the old class Yuze calmly looked at the classmates who had not passed the genetic admission line and cried, his lips pressed tightly, and his throat a bit blocked. This is not the first time he has taken the senior high school graduating class. He has had the same experience 6 times, but every time my heart is heavy and beyond words. The consequences of not reaching the genetic admission line are somewhat unbearable for these just 18-year-old children. Subconsciously, Yuzeping looked out the window, his gaze straight through the void. Damn intruder. If it weren't for those cosmic invaders, this gene admission line would not be as cruel as it is now. Time can heal all scars. The crying and weeping in the classroom gradually stopped. Within a quarter of an hour, the head teacher Yuzeping took a deep breath. Students who have not reached the genetic admission line, don't be discouraged, all roads lead to Rome. You will work hard in the future to get a bottle of E.level or DE.level gene liberation potion. It is still very possible. On the road of genetic evolution, everything is possible. There are precedents for this, so I won't say more. There can only be so much comfort. Well, next, students who have not reached the genetic admission line are requested to report to the Vocational Education Office to determine the next study direction as soon as possible. Other students, please gather at the number 4 exercise field after a quarter of an hour. The old class Yuzeping's eyes became sharp at this moment. Your genetic test has just begun. After a short goodbye in the number 4 exercise field, the remaining students from number 37 grade 3 in class 7 have all arrived, including Su Tue. The 2 of them get together, discussing the results, with a glorious scene, but also with a touch of worry. I have a score of 471, and I haven't reached the top 1 yet. I got 534 points and just passed 1 excellent. I just don't know how many gene basis points can be opened. I got 603 points. How many points do you score in the CAF? Cheng asked silently. Old Cheng, you should be called the Thigh. Su Tui said, why? Because I am 1 point higher than you. Only 1 point higher. A high score is also a thigh. Bang! Suddenly, a loud slap was thrown on the back of Su Tui's head. Su Tui's eyes widened and he was about to get angry. Fuck, who? Hey, the old class is here. Su Tui's face changed from anger to smile in an instant. Humble smiling face. The head teacher Yuzeping ignored Su Tui's smirk, walked through the crowd, and walked directly onto the commentary stage. Some classmates got high scores. I can understand the feeling of spring breeze, but what I want to tell him is that getting a high score in the college entrance examination is just a ticket for the genetic exam. Can you be admitted to a good genetic university? 0. Remember in 1 second whether you can strengthen or even evolve your own genes, become a genetic warrior, and become a strong man in the universe, depends on your own efforts. This sentence, Yuzeping, the head teacher, said while looking at Su Tui from afar. He showed his big white teeth and Su retreats, smiling in a serene manner. On the commentary stage, while the old class Yuzeping looked away from Su Tui, he roared at the students in class 7 of senior 3. Now, training continues, triple the amount of daily training. According to regulations, the authority and intensity of corporal punishment are completely open. A thin leather whip popped out and exploded in the hands of Yuzeping, the old class with a big waist and round waist. A group of students, including Su Tui, who are usually fearless, have a deep look of fear on their faces. The old class Yuzeping only allowed 50% of the corporal punishment authority and intensity in the past, and they all made them howl. How sour is the completely open authority and intensity of corporal punishment. No one wants to try. The next instant, Su Tu rushed out like a rabbit. The first project is a 5-kilometer run. Wrong. 0.5 kilometers is the daily training volume. At this time, 3 times the training volume, that is, 15,000 meters, 15 kilometers. No one complains. No one doubts. For one thing, all the students present understand why they want to do this. Secondly, it has been 3 years. Under the torture of the old class Yuzeping, the physical education teacher, they have already adapted. Yes, the old class Yuzeping is a physical education teacher. Nowadays, the head teachers of all high school students are PE teachers, also called the director of physical training. Daily training, that is the training that must be carried out every day. This training has been going on for 3 years, well, including the leather whip. The slender whip drew on Su Tui's in a steady, accurate, and ruthless manner. If you have the ability in physical training, you will get a higher score. Su Tui's buttocks under his school uniform swelled up quickly, and Su Tui screamed. Today's training goal is to grind out your limits in order to maximize the effect of your genetic medicine. The slender whip blasted in the hands of the old class Yuzeping, and the sound was heard in the ears of Su Tui's classmates, and if they were thundered, they accelerated involuntarily one by one. At this time, many classmates stepped their legs and stepped away, easily surpassing Su Tui's other classmates, and became the leader. Su Tui also accelerated his speed greatly, but tried his best to maintain a constant speed, adjusting his breathing diligently. This is a 15-kilometer long distance run, but it is not a 5-kilometer long run. After that, there were 80 push-ups, 50 poppy jumps, 80 frog jumps, 10 sets of variable speed running, 50 pull-ups, 300-meter obstacle running, flexibility training for limbs for 10 minutes, and nerve reflex training for 10 minutes. Well, triple. Nowadays, a group of students with a physical education teacher as the head teacher have long adapted to this intensity of training, but suddenly the training volume tripled, and under the threat of the thin whip of the old class, he quickly became exhausted. When the old class said the words rest and replenish water, one by one lay on the ground like dead dogs, filled with a bit of strange energy water prepared by the school doctor. One by one lay on the ground panting like dead dogs. Put the water, who will go? Su Tui staggered to his feet. The soreness of his thigh muscles made him limp when he walked. Upon seeing this, Cheng Imo hurriedly stood up, and limped up and grabbed Su Tui's neck. He put the weight of his small body on Su Tui, who had painful teeth and cracked mouth, and smiled. However, before Ching Mo finished laughing, Ching Mo himself screamed first. The Tang Hall, which weighs 100 kilograms tonnage, also learned a lot, and fell on Ching Mo's body. One by one, the screams and laughter joined together. I and the sun. A group of teenagers with cracking teeth went into the toilet with their backs on their shoulders, looking at a certain figure from behind. The old class U. Zepping narrowed his eyes after the water was released happily, and just about to leave, the Tang Hall with a tonnage of 100 kilograms scattered smoke. Brothers, come one, relieve fatigue, refresh yourself. Tang Ting made a round and threw one at Su Tui by the way. Then, like a trick, he found a lighter in a gap in the toilet and caught fire. In the toilet, 8 boys gathered together, vomiting clouds and fog, and suddenly, a figure with a round waist suddenly stepped into the toilet. A bunch of grandsons are all thief. Almost when he heard the first warning, he threw the cigarette in his hand into the toilet, and Cheng Haizi stepped on the foot flush for the first time. Su Tui, who had just suffocated his cigarette, was depressed, but it was half a step late. Helplessly, as soon as he gritted his teeth, he could only put half of the cigarette and the cigarette holder in his mouth, and closed his mouth tightly. What did you do with such a strong smell? Old Ban Yu Zepping asked with a drink. Let the water. Teacher, we are releasing water. Well, I put a few bunches of farts. Cheng Haizi added hatefully. The old class Yu Zepping cast a look at Ching Mo, his eyes finally fell on Su Tui, whose mouth was closed. Su Tui, how about you? (0) Remember in 1 second Su Tui shut up and said nothing. The thin whip in old Ban's hand was raised, and the whip was blown out. Answer me. Under the threat of the whip, Su Tui was helpless. Angry. 3 wisps of white smoke came out of Su Tui's mouth and nose, which opened his mouth. This is the smoke that suffocated before. A bunch of grandchildren looked at this scene and immediately burst into laughter. Old Ban Yu Zepping's slap fell fiercely on the back of Su Tui's head. Pissed off, see what you can. Anger can give birth to smoke. Why don't you go to the immortal? Go, add half of your daily training volume. Su Tui immediately showed the expression that life is worse than death, but Tang Ting, Ching Mo and others smiled with winks. The same for you. The old class Yu Zepping added, and immediately turned the smiles of Tang Ting, Ching Mo and others into wailing. Old class, Yu reading www.yuukangshu.com has eyes like a torch. Su Tui, who ran out of the toilet, opened his eyes and smiled, and gave his thumb to the old class Yu Zepping. In the afterglow of the setting sun, a group of teenagers soaked in sweat left the training ground and ran on their way home. The roar of Yu Zepping, the director of physical training of the old class, echoed in his ears. These days, I'll be honest with Tamar, whoever dares to touch the stuff such as tobacco and alcohol, which will affect the effect of genetic medicine, Lao Tzu's whip will definitely make him call his mother. After I go back, add more protein and do a good job of muscle recovery. When you come tomorrow, bring your electronic documents, the accident liability agreement signed by your parents, and the insurance policy. Dear, this chapter is over. I wish you a happy reading. Big smiley face. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.